close your eyes and imagine the world in 1969. Not the world of Apollo 11 or Woodstock, but the invisible world, the digital world. At that time, the internet, then called the ARPANET, consisted of exactly 4 computers, 4 nodes, 1 at UCLA, 1 at Stanford, 1 at UC Santa Barbara, and 1 at the University of Utah. If you wanted to send a message from UCLA to Utah, you didn't need a complex navigation system. You just needed to know that Utah was node 4. It was like living in a house with 4 people. You don't need a GPS to find the kitchen, you just walk there. But humans aren't good with numbers. We are storytellers. We are namers of things. Even in those first few months, the pioneers of the web didn't want to call a computer 10.0.0.51. They wanted to call it SRINIC or 小 Utah.CS. This is the beginning of our story. It's a story about the transition from a small-town directory to a global cosmic atlas. It's the story of how we stopped being human calculators and started becoming digital navigators. Welcome to the 3rd chapter of Vellum and Void. Today, we are exploring the domain name system, the invisible map that prevents the internet from collapsing into a chaotic, numerical abyss. As we moved into the 1970s, the ARPANET grew. It wasn't just 4 computers anymore. It was 20, then 50, then 100. In this era, the map of the void was a single file. It was literally called hosts.txt. If you've ever messed around with the internal settings of a modern Windows or Mac computer, you might have seen a hosts file hidden in the system folders. That is a vestigial organ, a digital appendix left over from this era. Back then, if you wanted your computer to be recognized by the rest of the network, you couldn't just plug it in. You had to talk to Elizabeth. Jake Feinler. Jake Feinler was the director of the Network Information Center at SRI. If the internet was a library, Jake was the head librarian. Her team maintained the master hosts.txt file. Imagine the manual labor involved. Every time a university added a new mainframe, they had to call Jake, often literally on a telephone, and say, "Hey, we have a new machine. Its address is 10.2.0.44, and we want to call it MIT-AI. Jake's team would type that into the master list. Then, every other computer on the network would have to periodically call home to SRI to download the new version of the file. Think about the weight of that responsibility. In the 1970s, the entire map of the void sat on a single hard drive in Menlo Park, California. If a janitor at SRI accidentally unplugged that server, the internet didn't break, but it became unnavigable. It's like everyone in the world suddenly forgetting the names of every street and every city simultaneously. You could still drive your car, but you'd have no idea where you were going. This worked for a while because the community was small. It was a high-trust environment, but by the early 80s, the small town was becoming a metropolis. The hosts.txt file was becoming massive. Every time you updated it, you consumed massive amounts of bandwidth just to tell everyone else that one new computer had joined the club. The system was screaming under the pressure of its own success. We were trying to manage a galaxy with a ledger. By 1983, the technical community realized that the Jake Feinler method, as heroic as it was, could not scale. The internet was transitioning from the ARPANET protocols to TCP/IP, the foundation of what we use today. The task of finding a better way fell to a man named Paul Macapetris. Paul's genius wasn't just in creating a faster way to look up numbers. His genius was in delegation. He realized that no single person or computer should have to know every name in the world. Instead, he envisioned a hierarchical system, a tree that grows forever. Think of it like the way we address physical mail in the US or Europe. If I'm in Berlin and I want to send a letter to someone in Brooklyn, the Berlin post office doesn't need to know where Flatbush Avenue is. They only need to know how to get the letter to the United States. The US post office only needs to know how to get it to New York. And the New York office? They know the streets of Brooklyn. Paul created the concept of domains. At the very top is the root. Below that are the top-level domains, the .coms, .orgs, and .edus, and the country codes like .uk or .de. This changed everything. Now, Jake Feinler didn't have to manage every single name. She could just manage the root. If a university wanted to manage its own names, Jake could give them the .edu domain and say, "You handle the details. Just tell me where your server is." This was the birth of the domain name system. In November 1983, the first DNS specifications were published. We stopped carrying the map in our pockets and started building a map that lived everywhere and nowhere at once. To understand the void, we have to look at what happens in the blink of an eye when you type google.com or bbbc.co.uk into your browser. You aren't just going to a site, you are initiating a high-speed global scavenger hunt. Step 1. The resolver. Your computer is the first actor. It checks its own memory, the cache. Do I know this guy? If not, it asks a recursive resolver, usually managed by your ISP, or a provider like Cloudflare or Google. Step 2. The root servers, the elders. The resolver says, "I don't know where Google is." So it goes to the root servers. There are 13 of these logical servers globally. They are the elders of the internet. They don't know where google.com is either, but they know who runs the .com registry. Step 3. The TLD servers, the gatekeepers. The resolver rushes over to the .com TLD server. "Hey, where's Google?" The TLD server says, "I have the records for the name Google. Here is the address of Google's own authoritative name servers." Step 4. The authoritative server, the source of truth. Finally, the resolver reaches the end of the line. It asks Google's server, "Give me the IP." The server responds, 142.250.190.46. Step 5. The handover. The resolver rushes back to your browser, gives it the number, and says, "Here, go there." And suddenly, the page loads. All of this entire journey across the globe, happens in about 20 to 100 milliseconds. It is a miracle of engineering that we take for granted every single day. We stopped memorizing IP addresses because we built a system that can travel the world and back before you can finish a heartbeat. But here's the catch. Because DNS was designed in 1983, in a world where everyone knew each other, it wasn't built for war. It was built for convenience. The original DNS protocol didn't have a way to verify if the answer you got was true. It just believed whatever the server said. This led to a dangerous vulnerability known as cache poisoning. An attacker could lie to a resolver and say, "Oh, you want your bank? Here is the IP address," but send you to a fake site instead. You'd be looking at a perfect digital ghost, unaware that the map in your hand had been forged. Gemini said this segment acts as the conflict and resolution arc of the mid to late section of your video. For Marcus on 11 Labs, the focus here is on a shift to a more serious, almost tech-noir tone. The goal is to emphasize the vulnerability of the early internet and the armor we built to protect it. Use this optimized text for the best results. Copy-paste content for 11 Labs, Segment 5, Narrator, shift to a darker, more serious and cautious tone. This is the noir chapter of the internet. But here is the catch. Because DNS was designed in 1983, in a world where everyone knew each other. It wasn't built for war. It was built for convenience. The original DNS protocol didn't have a way to verify if the answer you got was true. It just believed whatever the server said. This led to a dangerous vulnerability known as cache poisoning. An attacker could lie to a resolver and say, "Oh, you want your bank? Here is the IP address," but send you to a fake site instead. You'd be looking at a perfect digital ghost, unaware that the map in your hand had been forged. Narrator. Transition to a more confident, protective tone. In the late 90s and early 2000s, we realized the map of the void could be forged. We had to add layers of armor. We created DNSSEC, security extensions that use digital signatures, complex math, to prove that the map you're reading is the real one. And today we have DNS over HTTPS. Traditionally, your DNS queries were sent in plain text. This meant your ISP, or a government, or a hacker on public Wi-Fi, could see exactly what websites you were looking up. DOH wraps those queries in encryption, making your path through the void private. The map is no longer just a guide, it is a shield. As we look at the internet in 2026, the map is changing again. We are moving toward edge computing, where the DNS doesn't just send you to a server in California, it sends you to a server in the building next door to you. To save even more time, we are also seeing the rise of Handshake and decentralized DNS, using blockchain technology to ensure that no single entity, not even the elders of the root servers, can turn off a name. We've come a long way from Jake Feinler's telephone and her master text file, but the goal remains the same. We are trying to make the infinite, cold, numerical void of the machine world feel like a human place. We use names because we are human. We build maps because we want to explore. DNS is the reason the internet feels like a library, and not just a sea of static. The next time you type a simple word into your browser, take a second. Think about the scavenger hunt you just triggered. Think about the hierarchy. The elders, the gatekeepers, and the translators, working at the speed of light to make sure you find your way home. The void is huge, but we have a map. Thanks for joining us for this chapter of Vellum and Void. If you want to dive deeper into how the early web was built, check out our previous video on the physicality of the cloud. And as always, keep exploring, be seeing you.